What is going on, people? Welcome. Today I am going to do something a little different. I have somebody who's trying to learn how to use paint.net to make some simple RimWorld textures. And he found this, I guess it's a gladius sword, whatever, image on the internet, and he's just practicing, trying to figure out how in the heck to make an image. So since Alex is such a fantastic helper and also a supporter, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to walk through how to make this texture. Now, I'm not a graphics dude. I struggle with this stuff sometimes, but I've done it enough to be halfway decent. Any of you guys that know what you're actually doing with graphics work will probably have all kinds of comments about what I'm doing wrong, and that's fine. Like, please post. I don't pride myself on my skills with this stuff, but I've gotten decent. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the line curve tool, and we're going to arbitrarily pick 3 because that looks like a fine thickness. And we're going to create a new layer, and this is going to be the outline layer. Assuming I could type. There we go. So I'm going to mimic this about as close as I can. So with this tool, you draw a line, you get these 2 little dots in the middle of that line that you can then kind of drag around to make curves. And that's what that tool is all about. If you're trying to do big half circles, it doesn't really work too well. You have to split into 2 lines. But for smaller ones like that, it's decent. Now, for this, I'm just going to do a single line on the pommel. We can add some detail to that later. And I'm just going to work my way around. This is going to be a little bit long-winded because I want him to see the entire process, and hopefully perhaps somebody else can get something out of it as well. So if you want a straight line, like, you just don't drag your little dots around. And for the blade, we're going to go like this all the way to the end. And then we're going to put one of these here. And you can make like a cool, I don't know, Roman style sword. You could drag it out. I guess it looks weird if you drag it out, but I'm just going to, and you can kind of keep it in line. One thing that is a bit helpful as well, maybe not necessarily for this image, but images in general, if you double click one of your layers over here, I should say this is paint.net. It's free. It's great. You can muck with your opacity, which generally makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on in the textures that you care about. So I'm going to click this button down here to duplicate layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to layers on the layer that I just created by duplicating. You see it popped another one up over there. I'm going to flip horizontal. Okay, so it flipped it horizontally. And then under layers, there's this rotate zoom tool. So now I'm just going to dink around with this and see if I can't get it to line up somewhat close. And you can like manually rotate it, or you can do something like that. So really, I'm just going to pick what looks halfway decent. Neither of them, I guess. And sometimes stuff just doesn't line up. And the reason that would be is because this original background image just isn't in an optimal spot. One thing about that rotate tool, if you look at this, see you lose some quality. It might be hard to tell, but you do lose some quality when you use the rotate tool. So in this situation, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to go ahead and continue and draw the rest of it here. Same way I did the other side. Just going to do, yeah, you know, and again, this is a sample work. It doesn't have to be perfect. And in all honesty, I'm never good enough to get them to be perfect anyway. Some of the stuff I did for my dwarfs mod turned out far better than I thought it would. And I had some hints. So if you accidentally do that, you can hit Control Z to undo, and it'll reselect and let you edit that last line you were working with, which is useful. You can kind of see these don't look equivalent. Now what it's going to look like in game is maybe the pawn is holding the sword at a little angle or something. Totally fine, and we can definitely just work with that. So put that one there, and then one of the keys you can't really see. Maybe I should make that layer less opaque in the background there. All right. If you just click anywhere else, it'll unselect your line. So then that's going to be our outline. And it looks pretty good. I'm not unhappy with what I've done. And then I'm going to grab a delete tool here, an eraser tool, and just give this tip a little shave to make it sharp. And anywhere you think you have a little something, you want to either round something off. I'm going to let the rest of it go because this is such a simple image. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to go in the background and we're going to start a second layer. So if you click this more button down here in your color palette, there's all these standard stock grays. I'm going to take a dark gray and we're going to go 2. So before we were doing 3, and I'm on a layer below. This is going to be like the underneath outline because we're going to add some outline detail underneath what we had previously done. And I'm just going to use this dark gray. Typically for RimWorld, I've found if you're making any lines inside your texture like this, it works out much better to not make them black. You see a lot of people do that, and it looks good, and I've actually done that in many of my images, but it ends up being a better final product if you pick a different color than black to do that. And then for this, what we're going to do is make another layer, put it underneath, and I'm just going to add some pommel detail here. We're just going to make like something kind of roundish looking. And then over here, I'm going to click duplicate like 4 times. There you go. And then I'm going to grab this tool over here to move selected pixels and select it one layer at a time. Now you'll see as I do this, something weird is happening over here. The selected edge is moving in. And that's because every time I reselect a layer, it keeps the same thing selected that it had before. So eventually what would happen, and of course it's not going to show you this time, but if I had another one, it would actually, you'd try and drag it, it would cut part of it off. But really, if you just hit Control D, that'll unselect everything that's selected. And then you're good to go. Control D is an important part of actually using this software as far as I'm concerned. Okay, shoot. So this is the layer underneath. Okay, so that gives us a good, there's our basic layer for the sword. And then I'm actually going to merge those. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a copy of the main outline and I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to merge those down. So I have a saved outline copy, and I'm really just going to use that for selecting. And then this becomes the new outline. So this one will eventually go away or just be there in case I want to make alterations to the image later. And then so the gladius here can be unselected. And you see this line looks a little, it should be rounded, but it's actually not. Whatever. So what we're going to do is go for the blade first. So for the blade, I got the magic wand tool. If you're going to start selecting stuff, the primo spot on the tolerance here I found is typically 7. Now that'll vary a bit by your edge line size, but if you look here, so this is, I clicked inside this section with the magic wand, and you can see it got all these like partially colored cells. So if we were lower, it would leave these. And if you left that and put the image in the game, you'd actually see different colors coming through these things, and it would just look weird. So the key is, if you go much over 70, it always just selects everything. But if you sit at 70, that seems to be the sweet spot. So now we're going to make our first color layer, and that goes underneath our outline. So I want it to be lighter than what I was using for those center inside outlines there. So I think this is the one we selected before. You pretty much just have to remember it. And we'll click, I don't know, this guy looks good. And then I'm going to grab this fill tool on the new underneath layer and fill. Boom. Look at that. And so just from having done this before, I mean, one thing you could do is grab the next one and select the next layer. Boom. See, I had the wrong layer selected there. I want the outline layer selected. There you go. We're still at 70 for our tolerance. And then I'm literally just going to stay in the same one. And for this side of the sword, I want to be a little lighter. So we'll grab this color. I'm just picking these at random. And there you go. We're still on our, this is going to be our main underneath color. All right, so then back to this. Now I'm going to unselect everything. So I kind of did something dumb there. Like these gray lines I put in here, let's go pick, I could have done them a different color. And then, you know, then I could have like done different stuff down here. And I think I'll actually do that. So let's focus on the blade for now. So let's go ahead and grab the blade again. I want this side. And we're going to go to main underneath color, and then we're going to go to the layer that I created above it with nothing on it. And we're still at 70 for tolerance, so we know there's not going to be any little pixels showing through. You see here, it did miss a few, and you might notice that once in a while. If you do notice that, the thing to do is create a new layer underneath all your layers that you've been drawing in so far. Pick a nice dark color, and make your brush bigger. This is going to be underneath everything. So then I just color literally with a brush tool underneath. Now you see you can see them right in here. So I'm going to color all those in. And the reason it does that is I don't really know. But it's free software and it's fantastic. So I don't want to hear any complaints. All right, I'm going to just go ahead and merge main underneath color on top of what I just did, so that I know nothing's going to show through. I'm going to go back to my outline. I'm going to magic wand, select this side again, and I'm going to go to this layer, which is above my color layer. So it took the name off this. We'll just call it color for the sake of expediency. Okay, so now you got to think about how's the light going to be hitting this. The light in RimWorld what we'll just say for this image is coming from here. So this side is probably going to be lighter than this side. And then over here, I don't know, maybe it'll reverse. So let's go ahead. RimWorld typically just uses like a cell shading type thing. So let's pick a lighter color. Right now we have this one selected, I believe. So let's jump down to this one. And sometimes it actually looks better if you put more contrast in. And then I'm going to use my line tool again. And I'm just going to go down. Which side should we make lighter? I think we'll do down here. So I'm going to use the line tool, and I'm just going to kind of follow this blade over here, like so. And then I'm going to be like, well, that doesn't look like I followed it close enough. So instead of monkeying around moving this line about, what you can do is just make your line wider up here. All right, that looks good. And then, oh shoot, I put that on the wrong layer. See, I actually put that on color, not layer 5. So the way you fix that is you Control Z a few times till your line goes away completely. Yep, there's a whole lot of redoing stuff when you're mucking around here. And then you redraw your line. There you go. I spend a lot of time redoing the same shite over and over and over here. So there you go. Now, that looks pretty good. So that's going to be like the shading on that side. And then you can hit enter. You want to keep this. Enter will just lock that line in place. You want to keep this area selected. And then over here in effects, object, I do have a plugin that's allowing this. It'll tell you right there who's doing it. BoltBait. BoltBait has an amazing set of plugins for paint.net. So now I'm going to use the feather tool on what I just created. So you just up it until it covers a little bit, like, see, that looks too much. You can't really see it. Boom. And now we still have that same area selected. So what we're going to do then is make a new layer, get a nice real dark color, and then come back down there, make sure it shows up. It does show up. And then we're going to just follow the line of the blade like that. I'm going to hit enter to lock that line in place. And then I'm going to go do a feather again. And you'll see it's going to kind of shade from the top. I'm going to reduce it a little bit so it's a little more stark. Now we're going to take our selection tool again, go back to outline, click the other side of the blade. I'm going to merge those last two layers down and just call them over color. And we're going to create a new layer because I'm going to be doing some more of that kind of stuff. When you're doing those feathers, it'll feather the whole layer. You see, sometimes if you're feathering something on the edge, it'll kind of feather it out. But you can go back and fill in underneath like I did before, create a new layer and draw very slowly down this ledge underneath and then merge it down. But I don't really mind it so much. So next up, we're going to do this one. We need a nice light color. We're going to do the same thing on this side of the blade. Like that. And like that. And we want this one to be a little brighter. So if you don't like the color, this is the lightest one that it has by default. But you can just kind of muck around with this. If you go higher, it gets lighter. If you go lower, it gets darker. You can also just drag it around here, but that looks good there. So I'll hit enter and I'll go back to my feather tool. Object, feather object, and I want this one to be a little more involved like that. And then we're going to go one more time and do the same thing, but make it a little bit darker right down the blade length here. Now you see how I can't see it? It's because it's the same color I was currently using for the background on that blade. So what I'm going to do is put it in, and then I'm going to make it a little darker just by dragging this around down here in my color window. All right, that looks good. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to go do my feather again. This time I'm going to do 2 again. It's totally arbitrary, just whatever you think looks good. Now, one thing that looks a little screwy here is the blade, the edge of the blade, the sharp edge, is going underneath what I just put in. So I'm going to swap those 2 layers. See? There you go. I'm going to unselect everything. I'm going to merge these down, merge. All right. Oh, why does it look like shit now? Maybe it's fine. We need to get to 100. There you go. And in game, these end up so small that if you have some little inconsistencies, like, it's just not a big deal, dude. So next up, we want to work on the hilt. That's going to be the final part. All right, I kind of changed my mind. So this is kind of irking me here. So for something like that, you can just see those light lines going through. So we're going to make a new layer. We're going to go underneath over color. We're going to get that nice dark color we used before. We're going to take a really thin line of a 2 and start here, shoot it all the way to the tip. Now that looks really wide now, so it kind of looks like shit. You just have to play around with stuff, man. You know what? We'll just go right down the center again. See, also, once you start a line, if it's not in the right spot, there you go. Then you just have to undo everything and move your window around. There might be a better way to do that, but all right, so we covered it up. We just put a line under it. Good to go. There we go. And I'm going to merge over color down onto that and rename over color. All right, there you are. Now, next, the hilt. So like I said, I kind of boned up these lines. I don't want them to be that color. And since I'm an idiot, I already merged them into my outline. So what do I do about that? So as it happens, there's a few things. You can use a delete tool or an eraser tool. This is tedious and you're going to bone something up. So you just go through like this if you want to do it that way. I actually didn't bone it up too bad, so maybe I'll just run with that. Just gonna... It also is helpful to not like do the whole thing at once. Like do it in small increments, taking your finger off the mouse. So if you mess up one little section, you can just undo the last thing you did. That way hitting undo won't undo like everything you've done for the last minute, you know? Does that make sense? I don't know. And there's a little spot there that looks weird. All right, there we go. So we've saved our outline from my stupidity. So what I'm going to do is next up, we'll just consider this line a part of the blade. It looks fine that way. Some guys do like these lines that are a part of the blade will also fade in color. I have no idea how to do that. I'm not going to pretend I do. We're going to grab a nice yellow and we're going to make it dark like that. They're going to go really dark, actually. There's going to be some nice outline lines. And then we're going to make sure we're underneath our outline again. And I'm going to put a line here. Like that, and boom, and that looks fine. And then we're going to do the same thing down here. Make that one round up. I see I kind of boned it up last time, but this time I got it well in hand. And we're going to make this one round. Yeah, we'll add a little line down there. Okay, so that's all just line tool. Now, where do we go from there? I'm going to merge the outline right back down on top of that. So next up, we're going to select this zone, and we're still on 70, so we shouldn't have any little spaces around it that aren't selected. We're going to make a new layer. Yeah, usually I would name these like this is silvers. This I would probably just merge down, but I'm not super enthused with what I did there, but I don't think it's too bad. So I would just go with it in the interest of having to get shit done. If you click your secondary color here and then also select that yellow, get something a little bolder, and then I'm going to reduce how dark my main color was to something like that. And then I have this area selected. So there's other things you can do to kind of add some flair to it. And this is outside of what you really should be doing for RimWorld, but you can add a gradient. So we said light was coming from the top. So if I add a gradient like that, and I'm big on gradients, but I know it's not right for RimWorld art. So I'm trying not to teach you that. So I did that using this tool right here, gradient, and I have it set to linear and normal mode. No repeat, and not transparent, because you can do, see I boned it up by moving stuff, but you can always just hit Control Z to undo. And now if you don't think your colors are dark enough, you can, or light enough, oh shoot, we need to reselect it. There you go. Hitting Control Z reactivates my line here so that I can make it a little darker on the primary color, go back to the secondary color, make it a little lighter, just whatever you think gives it a good gold vibe. But in all honesty, I'm not going to do that at all anyways. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to fill it with my dark color. No, actually, we'll just pick a medium color. That's cool. Okay, and then we need to go back to our sword, select the area down here, and in fact here, and we're going to fill both of those in that same layer. I'm doing like really fast layer switches, so but you'll see that it's working out. It's working out. All right, I'm going to go back to my magic wand. If you hold Control when you're using your magic wand, it'll select multiple areas for you. You can also mess around with these settings up here. So you wouldn't have to hold Control if you had this selected. If you wanted to unselect an area, you would use this one. But that works. So we're going to go back to layer 6, which is our gold color. We're going to make a new layer above it. We're going to make this light gold color our primary color. And we're going to take this here line, just the line tool again. And I'm going to start down here and cruise up to this corner. And we're going to go something like this. There you go. Then we're going to do the same thing down here, roughly. Like this. So really, for RimWorld type art, you don't want a lot of colors. You should have like just a couple shading layers, and that's all you really need. So that's going to be the light shading. So effects, object, feather, and you can like whip it out. That's the wrong word, isn't it? Let's make this come down this way a little bit too. I think it'll look better. There you go. All right, there you go. Now let's go back and do our object feather, and we want to do a pretty significant one. So like that. Now you see most of my color faded out. One thing you could do to kind of bring some back is duplicate your layer. Bam. And then if you do it again, it's up to you, like whatever you think looks good. When you think you got it right, then you just merge those layers down, and then all those gold colors are on one layer. Now we're going to do the darker color that's underneath. So I need to grab this darker color again, make it darker yet, and we'll do the same thing, but in reverse around here. Same thing we just did, but dark side. And notice I have the dark one underneath the light one. That's also dependent on what you're doing, where your light's coming from, what you think looks cool, so on and so forth. If you don't want to do it this way, you can also use this tool, and I do this sometimes, but it's harder to get something consistent. Like you can just brush it in yourself like that. I think I'll keep this one back here. So you can just, boom. So I literally just colored that in by hand. And that. Now, one thing I hate to say is I don't think that color is dark enough. So I'm going to start over. And Control Y. If I Control Z too many times, it shifted my layers around. So let's take a darker color. Go back to my tool. I'm going to go brush width 4. There we go. That's looking good. Because when you feather it, it's going to get lighter. And for this one, I definitely want to use, first off, we need 3 as our brush width so we don't encroach on this when we draw a line over here. Boom, boom. All right, there we go. Now we're going to go and do our feather again, object. Sometimes you'll feather and you'll realize you drew on the entire wrong layer and your feather is boning up everything that you've done in the past. So I'm going to go 5 and then I'm going to duplicate my layer to make it a little darker. Then I'm going to merge them down. And which one is this? Okay, so I got light gold, dark gold, and underlay for gold. So I'm going to call the golds good for the minute. Again, I'm trying to do this quick as well. So, all right, that just leaves this section in here. So what do I want to do with this? We want a hilt. And there you go. So the first thing we're going to do for the hilt is we're going to decide this is a royal dude's sword. A royal dude would have a nice dark red. So I'll select red. I'll shift this color over here pretty arbitrarily. Like there's no real sense to it. And we will do that again, like I did before. Yeah, that looks a little off. There you go. So then we'll do 5 of those, and then we'll just shift some of them up. And now you'll see it moved my selected layer. So if I go to the next layer and I try and move it, it's only going to grab that little piece of it. The reason it's doing that is because this stuff's selected. So you have to hit Control D to unselect everything. And I can't get a consistent spacing here, can I? Something like that looks good. We'll just keep cruising. So royal dudes, royal chicas, definitely want some red on their sword hilt, right? Maybe purple, whatever. It's fine. This is all just a stupid example. All right, I did it too many times, so I'm going to come down here to the delete layer tool. Boom. Oop, one too many. Control Z. All right, unselect everything. Now, I'm going to merge all those down. I'm going to actually merge them right into my outline because that's cool. Sometimes you don't end up using this, but it's really nice to keep that spare outline around in case you need to select something. Anyways, back onto this. In fact, right now, we do need to select something. We don't have that ability. So we need to select. We do have that ability. Look at that. See? I don't even know what I'm talking about. Why am I making a video for people? And you can see we're missing some spots over here. So we'll just deal with that later by drawing underneath everything. I think that's going to be the easiest bet for that. So this is going to be our reds and our underneath red color. We'll just take that tone. And a lot of times I do this. So I grab this linear gradient tool and I do something. Oh, cool. See, we have two totally different colors selected. So we need a nice red and we need I don't want it to look pink. So we have to be a little careful there. All right. So now we have a couple reds and we're on gradient and we're on linear. So you can do something like this. I'm kind of notorious for this in all honesty, but. And you know what? I'm going to run with it this time. I think it's fine. And I want my red to be a little bit lighter there. And I also want it to kind of follow the line of the sword a little bit better. You can do this and it'll move your line around as long as your gradient is active. You can also shrink it up and you'll get more red. I like that in this situation. And then we really don't have to do any other shading down here. All right, there you go. That's our reds. And with that, I would pretty much call this one done. I think we had some spots we had kind of missed underneath here. So you could go down to your color layer underneath. And like we were using that yellow that we literally just selected yellow, dragged it over here a bit. Go get your brush tool. We're on the underneath layer. Just fill it in. And it, again, sometimes it doesn't even matter. And you might notice it in game, but nobody else ever would. There you go. That is a sword. So then you would just go do File, Save As, save it as a PNG, give it a name that is something meaningful to you. And that was very quick. Like, there's some things that could certainly be tidied up here, but the goal was just show Alex how to use these tools. That's how I would have done that. I am open to, like, if you're an image person and you're like, well, you did that really stupid and here's why, I'd be totally cool to hear that. You can also later on come back and let's say now we want like a super high quality sword. This will be a bonus section. So go select a circle. See what I'm doing? I'm actually grabbing something or doing something in black, which I said you shouldn't do. All right, so we'll make a circle on the hilt there. And I wonder that color. I guess that color is good because it would be a metal setting. And then we'll go underneath that. Actually, we'll select the inside of it first here. Boom. And go underneath. Then we're going to come over here and select our green. And we're going to make this one really dark. Or somewhat dark. And then we're going to go select our green. And we're going to make that one pretty light. That's a terrible color, man. Is this one any better? Let's try. I want this one to be, you can always muck with them too after the fact. So they have this little radial tool for shading or gradients. So then I'm right clicking now and dragging. If you left click, it just depends which color you want to be in the middle, primary or secondary. I want secondary in the middle, so I'm right clicking. And now you can see like, oh shoot, he made a gem, dude. And then, okay, well, this color is not light enough. Let's lighten it up. This color maybe could be a little darker. Yeah, it's just whatever you think, dude. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab the white color. I'm going to grab this, and I'm just literally going to go above that layer in a new layer. Put a white dot. Boom. And you can merge all these down. You could give them names. You can, be as crazy as you want with it. Sometimes I'm real particular about it, but sometimes I just have so many to do. I just don't care. Like, I'm just trying to get all the graphics or all the images done for whatever mod I'm working on. So anyway, there you go. That is the end result. Cheers to all my patrons. This video is for Alex, patron and massive supporter of the stuff I do for RimWorld. Here, if we zoom out a bit, you get because when it's in game, like this thing's going to be tiny, So it might not even be massive enough for in-game. Some of the detail does get lost. Like there's the 100% view. And yeah, whatever. That's typically how I go about things though. Pick a real world item, start drawing over it, and see what you come up with. That's it. I appreciate you guys watching. I would love some comments from some people that know about graphics. Tell me what I did stupid. Tell me what I could do to make my life a little better. And if you are out there and you get anything out of this, please leave a like and leave a comment. I'd appreciate it. I'll see you next time. One more thing occurred to me as I was talking to Alex after the fact. So one thing you see is you can add little cool effects, and it's not super RimWorld, but it does make things actually look sweeter. So you take I'm going to go back to the line tool. Now let's go to the brush tool size 1, and we're going to select the blade like that, and we're going to go over our color that we're using. You know what? I'm only going to grab the top of it for this one. So blade outline, select the top, go back to my new layer for color, and I'm going to make this really light, and I'm going to grab the brush on one width. So you could do we're going to have to go even lighter. Let's just go straight white. And we're just going to add some little nicks and lines and actual battle wear to it. You can put a couple dots around, boom, boom. Make it look like it was used. And then you need to go back with your eraser tool and kind of clean them up a little bit. so that you don't have any like sharp, quick endings. Like that, and like that, and like that, roughly. This is more of something on an advanced level that I didn't figure out for a while until Dino, who was making images like mad for me for a long time and just got kind of burnt out. Okay, so like that. Now, let's see if you have your erase tool next to a dot. Won't do much, but if you just barely get on it, it'll erase it a little bit. All right, so then we're going to do an effect, object, feather object. And we're going to feather those just a wee bit. You can decide whether you want them to stand out more or less. I'm going to let them stand out more. And then you come over to your layer and you reduce your opacity just to kind of make it look a little more interesting on the blade. And then we're going to do another layer under that one where we're going to grab a darker color. We're going to do the same thing. And we need back to size 1. If you just put some lines and some scratches and some nicks in that blade, it'll look like this dude or chick has been kicking ass and not really caring to take names with this sword. It depends whether you want something to look crisp and new or whether you want it to look like it's actually been fought with. And again, it's outside of the general bounds of what you typically see in RimWorld because you're kind of adding stuff on top that usually it's just like 3-color shading like that, almost like a traditional tattoo. Not almost, actually like a traditional tattoo. So for this one, you can go 1, 2, 3. That one, I'm going to go 2 as well, and I'm also going to reduce the opacity. And I don't ever pay attention to the number I'm reducing by. I just do it till it looks cool. Okay, and then I'm going to go grab the other side of the sword blade, boom. And then I'm going to make a new layer. And then for the bottom, we just need slightly different colors. So the light color we use is going to be a little darker than the one we used on the top. And that's why I did that. That's why I did them independently. Because if you do them at the same time, this one's going to really stand out because those lights are going to be too light. And one more down there. Like you really fend it off a blow. All right. And then let's get that. Boom, boom. Just tidying them up. This was intended to show every step of this process. I went a little too heavy there, so I undid it. That's why this video is so long and so involved. And if you think it sucks, well, then you shouldn't have watched this far. I've never done like a tutorial video like this, I guess. All right, there you go. And then we're going to reduce opacity after doing our feather, number 2 again. So I want this one to stand out enough that you can actually see it. That looks good. All right, for the bottom, we're going to have to go pretty dark on the dark scratches. We're going to put that underneath the white ones. Oh, we still have a delete tool selected. So there you go. Sometimes you just select the wrong tool. And boom, boom. Almost looks like a little happy face disappearing across the blade. You could do this, like you can go nuts with it, or you can just do it real sparingly, whatever, man. Like you're the one making the images. A lot of times I make images and I post them, and then people criticize the shit out of them. And you know, it's fair because I don't consider myself an image dude, like I said. But my response to that is typically, well, you know, if you can do better, dude, I'll include yours in the mod and not mine. But since I'm the one making the mod and I'm the dude stuck making the images, I'll put whatever I have in there, and I am a busy dude, so I can't be spending all day making the same images over and over. And sometimes they take quite a while to make. All right, that one looks good. We're going to reduce opacity pretty far on that one. I just want it to look cool. All right, that's fine. All right, there you go. That's the actual final product. And then now look, this shit stands out too much. So let's go back to this guy. And let's reduce opacity even further. There you go. I'm not sold on that, really. I like the way the top turned out, not the bottom. We'll just reduce it a little further. All right. I'm going to call that good. Anyways, thanks again for watching, guys. Sorry for dragging it out even further. Let's go back to 100%. There you go. Yep, see. I can never make up my mind. Let's reduce that. That's clearly the light one. And this one finally. I don't know. Given the style of this blade and how cool it looked when it was like new and fresh, I probably wouldn't add that stuff in and leave it, but that's just for ideas. That's how I did all the battle damage on the dwarven armor, suits of armor that I made, or all the little interesting looking bits on that armor, if you're familiar with it in the dwarfs mod. All right, anyways, that's it. This time I'm done for real.